Hi, I'm Judy Mudd. One of the most frequent requests I have in my watercolor classes is to paint a magnificent sky. I frequently have students come in, they think this is going to be an easy drawing, so it's bound to be easy to paint, and that is far from the truth. There are other subjects that are more difficult, like portraits of horses, because of the drawing of them, but actually because of the watercolor paint, a sky such as this can be very difficult to get on paper. However, there are ways to do it. Some of the problems that are in this painting, number one, you have individual colors, but you have soft edges. You have soft transitions between them. You have very few hard edges. You've got a few, but not very many. The other difficulty is some of that red or actually the blues will want to mix in with some of the yellows, and some of the oranges will mix in with the purples, and so they gray each other down, and all of a sudden your magnificent sky is no longer magnificent. It's rather dull and grayed down. So how do we get past that? And so what I do is normally pull out my color wheel, and I know that things that lie next to one another on the color wheel will blend well together. The things that lie across from each other on the color wheel will gray each other down. So in a bright, brilliant sky like this, we want to make sure that our transitions are compatible. And so we have yellow here and red down here. So I know together those will make some of those oranges. That looks great. The blue up here will mix in with some of this pink over here. That'll be fine. I'll start getting some violets or some purple colors. Those are fine. It's when the yellow wants to blend in with the purple, like over here, or the orange with the blues, and you start getting these gray down areas. Having a few of those is fine. We want a few of those in the painting, but the majority of this sky is bright, brilliant color, and that's what we want to try to capture. There are a couple ways you can go about this. One is I've seen some people mask off areas and try to retain that bright yellow or this bright pink, whatever. However, remember, when we have masking fluid, it has a quite very hard edge. And so now we have to figure out, how do we now soften all those edges into these transition areas that are very light and fluffy and blended into one another. So that creates a major problem in itself. The other thing that we have to could or possibly do is paint this individually, come back in, paint this individually, come back in, paint this individually, and then go back and try to soften all the edges. And I do that to some extent, but really what I do is I paint the whole thing in one go, because that will give me these transition areas that I'm looking for. Then the second step I'll do is I'll come back and I'll reinforce some of the colors that I may have lost, or some of the edges I may have lost by doing the first layer. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so the paint colors that I have mixed up are ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, some cerulean blue. I have in my reds, I have permanent rose and scarlet lake. I have quinacridone gold and rullan yellow. And that's about it. Now, when I get to the final stages, I may pick up some opera to make these even brighter. Or I also may pick up a more opaque color like a cad yellow to maybe get some of these harder edges in, or cad red to get some of those brighter reds that are back here. But my initial painting are the more transparent paints. So what I don't want is to have any of this blue fall down into this area. So what I'm going to do is start at the bottom, probably with my lightest color, which is yellow, and work my way up, rather than starting at the top and having it drop down, because I don't want to use a bead. Normally when you do a smooth sky, you start up here and you let that bead of paint transition into the next paintbrush stroke and gone on and go down. But we do not want to have that bead up here. We want to have some separation between the colors. Even though there are shapes and soft edges, we do want to be able to see that yellow. We want to see the orange and the reds and colors that are transitioning into one another. So I'm going to start with my yellow, and I'm just basically going to follow that shape. You can see I've done just a very simple drawing here. Here's my boat. I didn't really put it in. I just put it in as a kind of a line to show where it would go, and some land masses back here. So I'm going to generally follow. I'm not going to be perfect because, 2 seconds later the sky has started changed again. So it doesn't matter if it's not perfectly painted just like what we see there, but we do want it to be just some general shapes. Okay, so there's a little bit of that yellow now, and it's going to be soft on and over here. So while that is nice and wet, I'm going to pick up a little of this pink. This is Permanent Rose. I'm going to lay it in beside it. I actually want it to blend just a little bit because I do see how orangey this is through here. So I'll go ahead and push that a little bit with some Quin Gold. All right, underneath, again, they can blend together. So what I'm wanting here, I want to have colors, some individual colors, but they're all going to be worked into one another. Soft edges, think soft edges every time you put your brush down. Alright, a little warmer in the red department here, so I'm going to go with that Scarlet Lake. And that's not bright enough, so I'll put a little bit more. Scarlet Lake. Doesn't matter, the boat's going to be in silhouette, and it's going to be darker than the background, so I can really just paint right over the boat. That boat will be a dark, so it won't have to be saved as far as whites go. Okay, a little more red over here. And I'm just trying to follow those shapes a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and get this up above here so I can keep that soft edge going. Now this will dry lighter. It will require at least one more layer of paint just to enhance the colors. Not soft enough, so I'm taking a clean brush. I wiped it off, and I'm going to soften some of those edges. Okay, over here, this is where it starts to turn gray. Go ahead and put some blue in there. And send some orangey on top of it. Again, it'll have to take another coat just to get that look. Okay, I'm working my way up. Now you can see how it transitions into more of just the pink and red and orange. A little more orange up over here. So I'm adding a little bit of the Quin Gold to it. Orange, and then it gets lighter up in this area. I actually have a light area here. I'm just going to leave that soft with water. Go into some more pinks. Now I'm getting more into a little bit of the opera. Let me soften that edge while it's damp. Okay, a little more pink over here. almost pure pink, not quite. It's got a little graying down to it, so it's got a little blue going on back there. And then I'm going to go ahead and introduce a little bit of the blue. Now this right in here looks purpley, so I'm going to go with cobalt. And there, again, they're running right into one another, next to one another. Soft edge, a little stronger up here. Just paying attention to what my shapes are. See a spot that I don't like. Some of these, actually, these little blossoms look like clouds, so I'm leaving some of them. And then darker on this side. Let's see. And just get stronger in the blue. Again, nice soft edges. And I get up here, I see those pinks, and they need to have a nice pure color in there. I'm going to put some of this up here because I want it to be softened into the edges of the blue. Alright, and just keep going up. And then just keep going up into my ultramarine blue up here at the top. Okay, lots of soft edges. Up here, soft edges. Right into these clouds. Soft edges. And there's some pure pink up here. Load up my brush a little bit stronger. You have to do it quickly and just hope it turns out. Go back, soften some edges. Okay. A few things going here. We'll smooth them out. Smooth this out. Fortunately, the sky has a lot of streaks in it anyway. Smooth this edge out because I want that to be soft. I want this to be soft. Again, I'm using clear water, but wiping it off first. I don't want to just drop in a big blob of water and have it run down the paper. Okay, soft edge. Okay, this is going to be soft. And then I can let this dry. Soft edge. Okay, so then that would be my first go around. I'd let it dry completely, I would take my lifting brushes, which are you've seen these before, the nylon bristles. They're usually for oils or acrylics. I just cut the ends off, but nylon is nice and smooth for watercolor paper. So then once that dried, I would go back and look at my photo and say, okay, that needs to be a little softer in here, so I'm going to soften that up. This needs to be a little softer at the end here, so I'm going to soften that up. Any transitions that don't look right at the time, then I'll either go back in and soften them up, or I'll put more paint over the top, because this needs another coat of paint. This needs to be softer. There could be some streaks that I want to add in, and I can do that with my lifting brush. Maybe something up here even. So that would be my first round. Let it dry. Look at my shapes. Look at my intensity of color. And go back in and add either soften edges or add color to intensify the look. Let me show you one that's a little bit further along than this one. And you can see what I'm talking about as far as another layer. I've added stronger colors in here. I lift some out of here. Now, once I put those boats up against that really dark and that land mass, it's going to be all dark, and then add my water down here, the painting will be pretty much finished. But you can see why it's more difficult to do in watercolor because of the blending of the watercolor on the paper. So, but it's still fun and it's a challenge, and I encourage you to give it a try. And I will look forward to showing you my art tip next month. Thanks for watching.